And coming up on this week's show, an HS2 construction update showing the 4,500 tonne bridge slide in Buckinghamshire. Richard visits Shrewsbury to see the area's wonderful signal boxes and semaphore signals. And an update on Derby's greatest gathering this summer to celebrate Railway's 200. And welcome to Green Signals from me, Nigel Harris, and with a very flashy sweatshirt this morning.
Me, Richard Bowker. Yeah, thank you very much. It's my Bianchi Passione Celeste sweatshirt. It's a bike brand.
I was just going to show me ignorance and ask him what it was. Is it a drink? It sounds like it should be, because they didn't have many of them. They didn't have many of them on Burnley Market, Richard, but there you go.
Fair enough.
Right. Last week, we had something of a political show with a review of Rachel Reeves' big growth speech, which generated a lot of comment, and not just from me and Richard, more of which later. Secretary of State Heidi Alexander's speech to the staff of the DFT operator, and the Transport Select Committee about the launch of Shadow Great British Railways. It was all important stuff, but oh my, it was quite high-octane heavy going, wasn't it, Rich?
It was quite heavy, yeah.
So this week, we start with something unashamedly uplifting and positive, and it's an HS2 story. Over the weekend, the team at HS2 and EKFB, a consortium of Eiffage Kia, Ferrovial Construction and BAM Nuttall, working with design partner ASC, carried out an enormous bridge slide, sometimes known as a launch. And this was no ordinary deck slide. 4,500 tonnes of double composite steel and concrete construction slid in one piece and in a single procedure. Richard, lucky so-and-so out on jollies, was invited to a very select media event to witness this slide, and it's fair to say it was gobsmackingly brilliant, as indeed is Richard's video. Here's his report of this remarkable event. Enjoy.
Small Dean, a settlement that's not much more than a handful of cottages on a quiet country lane just south of the town of Wendover. It's not somewhere you'd expect anything dramatic to happen, except over the course of the weekend of 30th of January to the 2nd of February, it became the centre of the railway construction world, as HS2 and their contractor EKFB undertook the heaviest and longest single-stage deck slide on the HS2 project so far. Stretching for 350 metres in 7 spans and weighing an astonishing 4,500 tonnes, the Small Dean Viaduct is one of 15 major viaducts on the HS2 project. But in terms of dramatic presence, it's vying for top spot.
So I'm here at Small Dean, the HS2 worksite for the Small Dean Viaduct that will be straddling the A413, a very busy road between Great Missenden and Wendover. The slide of the deck of the viaduct is being done in one piece. The whole viaduct is being moved. It's around 4,500 tonnes, and it's a really quite extraordinary piece of engineering and a feat of logistical skill. So we'll go and have a look at what they're up to and how they're going to actually carry out the deck slide.
The viaduct is one of only 2 places in the Chilterns where the HS2 route will be above ground level, with the underside of the viaduct just 6 metres above the road, supported by the huge Y-shaped piers. The team have spent 4 years preparing the site, diverting utilities, realigning the road, building the abutments and the 6 piers that support the viaduct, and assembling the deck to get ready for the slide. And on the 31st of January 2025, I went to have a look. After a thorough safety and project briefing, we donned full PPE, this being a very active construction site, and went out to have a look. The scale of the viaduct is extraordinary. Looking at the full length laid out in front of us, it was hard to comprehend quite how this entire structure was going to be slid, in actual fact pushed, over the road and railway line ahead of it. The operation was spread out over 4 days. Phase 1 took place on the 30th of January, Phase 2 was on the 31st of January, and was the day I visited. It required the A413 to be closed so that the deck could be slid over the roadway and onto the piers beyond. Phases 3 and 4 on the 1st and 2nd of February would require the railway to be closed, though interestingly, the road was reopened for that, with cars passing underneath, presumably oblivious to the fact that a viaduct was slowly but surely crawling overhead towards its destination. I spoke first with Jason Bicknell, the project manager for the client, HS2. So Jason, you're the project manager for HS2 Limited. What does that, in a site like this, with a project like this, what does that role entail?
Well, essentially I'm here to work with our EKFB contract team to make sure we deliver the contracts on schedule and on budget, and just to kind of make sure we're here to support them anything they need. And also sometimes there's wider HS2 groups that they need to get support from, and I'll liaise with them and support them on that.
So this viaduct is part obviously of a much wider contract. What does that contract actually involve? Which section is this?
Yeah, so this is EKFB section, which is an organisation made up of Eiffage, Kia, Ferrovial and BAM. It covers an 80-kilometre stretch that goes from, I've got to remember this, from Great Missenden all the way up to Great Worth in the north of Northamptonshire.
Right, so significant
80-kilometre stretch.
So 80 kilometres,
yeah.
And roughly now, I mean, we're here obviously in January 2025, roughly how far are we through the civils part of this?
I'd say, this is a rough guess,
Yeah.
I'd say as an estimate we're probably about 85% of the way through.
Okay, so it's quite...
we're quite advanced now, yeah. So we're now in the stage where we're starting to interact with our rail system teams as well, who are going to come in as a third stage to start actually building the actual railway.
And I suppose that's when it gets really exciting. I mean, what's great about this, there's something visible, you can actually see it.
Yeah.
It's when you actually start sort of kitting
that's why
it out.
today's so exciting, because we've been building this viaduct for 2 years. So, and putting the piers and all that kind of work's all gone into diverting utilities. It's been really, really sort of a lot of intense work that's gone into it.
No.
And today's the sort of culmination of that, this single launch that we're doing today of this huge viaduct.
The viaduct, like the nearby Wendover Dean viaduct, has an innovative double composite structure, with layers of reinforced concrete on the top and bottom to create a much more structurally efficient box-like span. This dramatically cuts the amount of embedded carbon in the design. HS2 say that in a nod to the great railway bridges of the Victorian age, the side of the small Dean beam features prominent deck stiffeners or fins, which help to manage the structural forces while allowing for a more structurally efficient span. They certainly look dramatic. I spoke next with Martin Gamble, Senior Project Manager for the consortium who have built the viaduct, EKFB. Martin explained the process that had led to this point, and also the tremendous lengths that the team have gone to ensure the viaduct and the railway are future-proofed as much as possible for an uncertain climatic future.
Everything has been focused on reaching this point. It's been a sort of two-horse race where one horse was building the viaduct and welding that together and make sure all the fins were welded on, and the other horse in the race was making sure all the structure that the viaduct was being launched onto now was all in place as well. Equally, challenging for both of those horses, and we managed to get them both in, not just on time but ahead of time. So we're actually launching this a number of months ahead of when we originally planned when we first set out. Yeah.
So we're actually ahead of schedule.
We are ahead of schedule. Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Been in the construction industry a long time. It's not often you say that, but it's worth celebrating when you do. Yeah.
It certainly is. It certainly is.
Obviously, working around the live railway and the live road has been an immense challenge. We have other challenges, which relate to hydrology and other such things in other parts of my section. All of them equally difficult and require a lot of teamwork, a lot of collaboration to get through. But we are. We work well. I've got a good team, a really good team. You spoke to Elliot, and everyone is working towards getting this railway done as quickly as possible.
One of the things you mentioned there about hydrology is fascinating. You don't realise until you come to these sites how complex they are,
how tight and constrained they are. And I know you're also, this has been designed for a significant period of time. Is dealing with things like hydrology and land condition part and parcel of that? Because presumably climate's only going to get more challenging.
In the design, normally you know, like drainage and flood modelling, that sort of thing, you normally sort of design something for 1 in 100 year storm or something like that. We're adding another 25% on that, but so everything is a little bit bigger. You know, some of the ponds that we'll be putting in are a little bit bigger, and some of the drains and what have you that we put in are a little bit bigger. So, but we are, you know, future proofing and making sure that we work for the 120-year design life of the project. Yeah.
Well, given the challenges of recent storms, and so that makes perfect sense. So, well, look, good luck with the rest of the slide. Hope it goes well and the bridge gets across and in situ as you planned it.
Yep, no, we've got a great team on, and they're going to do a fantastic job, I'm sure.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The slide itself is not carried out in one continuous, uninterrupted movement. Instead, periods of movement are followed by short breaks, whilst the various teams regroup and get ready for the next forward advance. During the slide, special pads covered in polytetrafluoroethylene, or PTFE, a Teflon-like material usually found on the surface of a non-stick frying pan, were used to minimise friction between the deck and the temporary steel bearings on top of each of the piers. A cable system was used to slide the deck forward at speeds of up to 10 metres per hour. So I'm here on the A413, which today, on Friday the 31st of January, is closed to traffic so that they can slide the deck of Small Dean Viaduct over this road. It'll actually reopen the road tomorrow for traffic, but they'll carry on sliding the deck. They just need to close it today. You just get an incredible sense of just how tightly constrained this site is. Not only are they sliding a 4,500 tonne viaduct over the road and then onto the piers behind me, just to my right is the Chiltern Main Line. And the trains are still obviously going up and down that. They're very close. So access here and the logistics and the engineering is really quite extraordinary. It's incredibly impressive to see. And by the time that the deck slide is finished in a couple of days, this viaduct will be all the way across onto the other side and connected with its final abutment. So a really impressive piece of engineering. I spoke with Elliot Bright, the engineer leading the planning and execution of the bridge slide, to find out in detail how this has all been done. Elliot, we're here at the nose of the deck slide.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty dramatic. But I suspect this is the culmination of a lot of work. How long has it taken to get to this point?
So there's been a good 2 years of just continuous effort and lots of collaboration between multiple different teams, subcontractors, suppliers, to culminate in the day that we are seeing today. Well, the 4 days that we're working on, day 2 today.
So this is day 2. This is the only day you've actually got the road closed, isn't it?
Correct, yeah. So that's when the nose behind me is passing over the A413. Just for that day, we close it to make sure it's safe. It's quite a big distraction, I'm sure you can agree, for any drivers coming through. So that's why we closed it for that reason.
But interesting, once this day's gone, the road reopens, but the bridge will still be going over the road.
Yes, very slowly. Yeah, you won't notice as a driver. But it's completely safe. It's supported between the 2 piers either side. It's designed to be that way. So it's just a continuation of the movement.
So this is a double composite structure.
It is, yeah.
Why that? Was there a specific reason that for this bridge you had to do it that way?
So it's to do with the longer spans, really. So we've got 55.5 metres as our longest spans. And by using concrete and steel in conjunction in a composite manner, we're able to have quite an efficient cross-section of design. So that means reducing the amount of reinforced concrete and also reducing the amount of structural steelwork. But combining them together allows us to have an efficient design.
And I also noticed from the briefing earlier that it's on ever such a slight curve.
It is, yeah.
It's very shallow, but
yes.
Has that added complexity to the slide as well?
No, not particularly, really. Obviously, there's a little bit of design consideration in the eccentricity of that, but really the mechanism works all the same as if it was on a straight line. Just simply that the strands go on the sort of bisection of that curve as opposed to straight along the central line.
So, Elliot, the nose itself, what function does that carry out? I mean, it's clearly not just decorative.
Yeah, so as the girders slide over the piers and when they're at cantilever, they deflect up to 400 millimeters.
Right.
And the nose has deliberately got a taper on the underside of it to angle up so that the tip of the nose or slightly along the end of the nose would catch onto the launch supports and then the deck would ride up back to the supported level between the piers.
Otherwise, it would literally just drop down as it went over.
Yeah, it would just keep getting worse and worse and worse if we didn't do that. Yeah.
Gosh.
And ultimately it would hit the pier or the bearing plinth, which we want to avoid.
I understand that is this the heaviest viaduct of all on HS2?
I know certainly for EKFB it is.
Right,
But
okay.
HS2, I'm not sure. I'd have to defer to the team there. But it's certainly the longest and heaviest, longest continuous slide and heaviest deck slide on EKFB.
So you are sliding the entire bridge.
It is, yeah, the full 350 metres over the 4 days.
No, that's quite extraordinary. And then once the slide's complete, what's the process then for finishing it off, or is it pretty much done once it's
No, there's still a lot of work, but we've eliminated a lot of the interfaces that we would have with the road and rail. So the next step is to lower the bridge deck onto its permanent bearings, and then we proceed to cast the slabs, which connect the steelwork with the concrete being combined together. Then we lift in the parapets, do some waterproofing and some abutment works, and then the bridge is pretty much there from a structural point of view.
and then it's pretty much done from there, right? So, I mean, look, it's absolutely stunning. I must admit, it looks spectacular as well. How many people involved in making this happen then over the course of these few days?
That's a good question. I'd hazard a guess. I'd say it's in the hundreds for sure, maybe 300. But we have 70 on site today just for doing the launching work.
Let's do this. Well, absolutely terrific. Good luck with the rest of the slide, and looking forward to actually seeing it in situ when it's completed.
Yeah, as am I. Thank you very much. Cheers.
The deck slide was a tremendous success. Indeed, it went so well that the A413 was reopened at around 8:30 on Friday evening, some 9 hours ahead of schedule. As I left Small Dean, I was once again left marvelling at the talent and skill of all of those involved in HS2. Forget the politics, forget the noise and the nasty gossip. Sometimes it's just wonderful to celebrate events like the Small Dean deck slide, when a railway project underway here in Britain and the people who are delivering it can truly be described as world class.
That was brilliant, Richard. And I have to say, I found your closing comments actually quite emotional. Because we've said many times, it's everybody talks about HS2 in terms of just a project, and very often in terms of something to be criticised that's gone wrong and is a byword for a disaster. And we've said before we should salute the engineers, and my goodness, have you there? It was extraordinary, wasn't it?
It was amazing. Normally I obviously script the voiceovers because you've got to, otherwise you just kind of make a mess of it. But I didn't do that last bit. It just kind of came to me, and
You could tell.
It felt like that.
It was from the heart.
Yeah. I mean, everything I've been to with HS2, there are some absolute common themes. One, they're always incredibly welcoming. They have by the way, big shout out to the media team who do a brilliant job at HS2. They are, I'm not sure I'd want to do it given some of the flack they have to handle, but they are incredibly good. But also, as you say, just the scale of it just blows you away. I just stood there for about 2 or 3 minutes, just looked at this thing going, you're kidding. How are you going to do that?
Well, I mean, to get that lot on the move, I mean, very prosaic, but is it jacks or hydraulic rams to get it moving or what the hell? But if there's one point that stood out in my mind and really caught my ear, as you like, as it went by, was when you made about the point about the fact they shut the road to go over the road, but then reopened it to do the railway. And everybody driving underneath having no idea that over the heads there's 4,500 tons of bridge deck is actually moving across from one side to another.
I think they use what are called stand jacks, and they sort of have these they are pushing it, but they've also got something pulling it a bit as well to keep it under tensions. But the thing that's pulling it's not pulling as hard as the thing that's pushing it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, it's a very technical engineering term, that, Richard, but I get it, yeah.
Yeah. They did explain it, and I went, okay, right. But they put these pads on, these sort of Teflon pads, PTFE, to help it slide over. And there are guys actually putting these in place and then moving them.
Really?
I mean, it is an extraordinary thing to witness. And as you rightly say, they get a hard time in many respects, but when you see what they are doing on the ground, it's amazing. And Elliot, who is basically the engineer responsible, young guy, absolutely amazing. And he's lived this for the last few years. And
2 years of solid effort for that moment to press the button. And
and utilities, I think, and prep before that, so it's
I thought those time lapse bits were just brilliant, where you can see the whole thing.
Yeah, thanks to HS2 for that. Lest nobody think that was my drone work, that was theirs. But it was great.
When you talk about the interviews and things, the thing that's come across to me as a viewer, if you like, in all the interviews and stuff you've done with HS2, because you've done 2 or 3 of those reports now, haven't you, in different places, they're always so pleasant, engaged, enthusiastic, because, you will have come across them, and I know me and Stef has, some really miserable interviewees sometimes, but they always seem eternally at half full, don't they? Never half empty, and terminally optimistic, and I love that. So well done, guys and girls. Well done. Please keep it up. We are spotting it, and we will continue to highlight and salute this one. Maybe there's I don't know, Rich, maybe there's a little video at some point of HS2's greatest civil engineering hits at some point.
Well, we're building them up, aren't they?
Drawing on the material that you've shot and a bit of new narrative and things.
Yeah.
All right.
Good idea.
But well done. And it was a great little vid. Really enjoyed it. And I was genuinely emotional at the end. I think Stef said the same thing, so it's not just me. But speaking from the heart on a voiceover really works.
Yeah.
All right, sticking with a positive theme, this year is, of course, the 200th anniversary of the Stockton and Darlington Railway, which is generally, although this is a minefield, considered the world's first commercial railway venture. It is regarded as the world's first public railway to use steam traction. While there had been earlier wagonways and plateways and even the use of steam locomotives, it was the coming together of all these elements to provide a public service which made the S&DR a significant milestone in the creation of what we all now think of as the modern railway system. For the first time, the railway became a permanent fixture with regular trains for communities and businesses beyond the bespoke systems that had gone before. So it's important and it's right that we celebrate it. A considerable head of steam, forgive the pun, is now building up with a number of wonderful celebrations planned this year. We've got an interview on Railway 200 coming up soon, but something else very exciting happened this week. Over to you, Richard.
It did happen, and it was the launch by Alstom at Derby at Litchurch Lane of the preparation, if you like, the kickoff for the greatest gathering. Now, we weren't able to attend, unfortunately. We're filming elsewhere, but it looks absolutely amazing from the footage we've seen and from the first-hand reports of people that were there. Now, they've now told us all a little bit more about what's going on and what we're going to see at the event. It's going to be August the 1st to the 3rd at Derby Litchurch Lane. They're going to have more than 50 rolling stock exhibits from the past, the present and the future of the railways. They actually had a great lineup of locomotives at the launch, which apparently they'll either all be at the event in August or representatives of the same class. And then there's other things that they said they're going to have, which I'll just read out here. They're going to be rides along the test track, which I've done. It's very cool. And a variety of narrow gauge trains will be running. I wonder if yours is going to be there, Nigel.
Well, it's available, Richard. Funny you should mention that. Again, maybe you could just have a quick flash picture up if Alstom's watching. We could have the Green Signal Steam Railway there.
They're going to have model railway layouts in a bespoke model railway village, which is great. And they're going to have a mobility theatre where historians and industry leaders will give talks and discussions. So it's going to be an amazing thing. Now, we also thought we'd better just sort of mention that lots and lots of Green Signals listeners posted and wrote to us about the trouble that they'd had booking tickets for the greatest gathering when they launched on Friday, the 31st of January. And there was clearly some disappointment that the website went down and many people have been able to book despite trying for hours, and I know quite a few hours. So we asked the guys at Alstom what had happened. And I'm just going to read out what they said. They said, our previous ticketing provider's site struggled to cope with unprecedented demand.
It collapsed under demand, I guess.
Well, from around the world last week for tickets for the greatest gathering. We're sorry to those that persevered throughout the day in order to be disappointed when they were unable to buy their tickets to the event before we made the difficult decision to suspend ticket sales. We're currently in the process of onboarding a new ticketing provider that is accustomed to handling the volume of web traffic anticipated for sales to our event. Rest assured, if you've already received a booking confirmation, you will receive your e-tickets in due course from the new ticketing provider. As we stressed before, there are thousands of tickets still available across the 3 days. Details of when tickets will return to sale will be promoted on this website and on our social media channels. From our rail family to yours, again, thank you for your patience. Now, just before we recorded this, Nigel, Alstom let us know that they've got a new ticketing provider who manages ticketing for large-scale events, and the tickets are once again on sale. So that's excellent. That's excellent news. Sounds like the original provider was just overwhelmed with a level of interest, which we understand was eye-watering numbers of people, Nigel.
Like trying to book tickets for Oasis or something. Like.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say, right, so we've got the privilege of knowing the team at Alstom who are organising this, and they are wonderful, right? They are absolutely committed and dedicated to do this. Alstom didn't have to do this.
And it's not just a job for them. They're living and breathing it, aren't they? Yeah.
They did not have to do this. It's quite a complicated thing to organise. And so, for everybody listening, they are terrific people, Ben Goodwin and his colleagues. So we know that the demand on the 31st was absolutely extraordinary. I wouldn't have guessed it.
No.
Right? So, let's give them a bit of slack. They've sorted it out immediately, and hopefully we'll get everything organised soon. It's going to be a great event.
So if you want to book tickets for the event, probably best not to wait too long. Now, Shrewsbury, or Shrewsbury, before the pronunciation police get on us.
I think both are fine.
Oh, I hope so. A lot of railway people used to just refer to it as Salop, didn't they? So maybe we should stick with that. Anyway, sticking with the heritage theme, perhaps, one of the fast disappearing but once commonplace everywhere features of the railway are semaphore signals, upper quadrant, lower quadrant, you name it, and the manual signal boxes which operated them with crashing levers and interlocking. The Devon and Cornwall re-signalling last year spelt the end for the last long-distance main line semaphores, but there are still pockets where they survive at work. One of those is Shrewsbury in Shropshire. And Richard, guess who, managed to join our old friend Nick Millington, MBE, Network Rail's route director for Wales and Borders, for a look at what can still be seen at Shrewsbury. It's a hard life, but if you can stand the pace, what fun.
It feels like only yesterday that semaphore signals and the manual lever signal boxes needed to operate them were a commonplace sight across the whole of the railway, such as here at Truro in Cornwall on the Great Western Main Line. The re-signalling project in Devon and Cornwall was completed in early 2024 and brought to an end mainline semaphore signals here after over 150 years, and with it, the passing of an era. In fact, across most of Britain's railway, this wonderful sight will eventually be nothing more than a distant memory. I've come to one place, though, where semaphore signals still rule the day, and it's not planned to be changing anytime soon either. I've come to Shrewsbury, on the border of England and Wales. This is a busy railway town, where the lines from Wrexham, Crewe, Wolverhampton, Hereford, and the Cambrian from Aberystwyth and Machynlleth all converge. My host for the day is good friend of Green Signals, Nick Millington, route director for Wales and Borders at Network Rail. We meet up with Nick's colleagues, James Arnold, operations manager, and Dean Baker, the assistant local operations manager for Network Rail, and we set off to see our first box of the day at Abbey Foregate Junction.
Well, it's a lovely day for the visit.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
Nice and fresh.
Dean has given us a thorough safety briefing before we set off, and so we know exactly what to do and what not to do, not only in the signal boxes, but also when we're close to the live railway. We pass Abbey Foregate sidings, where recent investment to support the introduction of new trains has seen walkways, LED lighting and controlled emission toilet tanks all installed. Dean tells us to wait as a train is approaching, and soon a Class 158 arriving from Telford passes the box. Once it has passed, and Dean is satisfied all is clear, we cross and enter the lovely brick-built signal box of Abbey Foregate Junction. The frame in this box is of standard GWR design, a rather flush-mounted frame that enables a signalman to walk up and down the frame without risk of tripping. The box is full of wonderfully antique equipment, some of which, though no longer operational, has still been kept in beautifully pristine condition, brass gleaming in the low winter sun. The Class 158 that had recently arrived from Wolverhampton passes the box on its return journey. Signalman Pete expertly operates the equipment, and I note the immaculately polished brass plates on the levers. During my visit, I have the chance to speak with Nick about what it takes to keep all this equipment in tip-top condition. It's like stepping back in time. I mean, it's just like semaphores, manual boxes.
Yeah.
I have to say, it's absolutely brilliant, but presumably it creates challenges of its own, does it?
It absolutely does. So we have got a number of mechanical heritage signal boxes here.
Yeah.
Severn Bridge, Sutton Bridge, Abbey Foregate, Crewe Junction's behind us there. If you look at all of the points here, or mainly all, mechanical, driven. We've got some motorised points, but we're not getting any big investment here soon. Okay?
So there's no resignaling coming?
No resignaling here. So it's a case of trained artisans, of which we've got a number here in the Shrewsbury delivery unit, caring for this perpetually. Today we met the locking fitters at Severn. They are always there, always doing something to try and keep ahead of the next failure. If you look at the drive systems, the mechanical cranks and rods and everything else, we are permanently replacing equipment. We've got a challenge with reliability with old equipment, but we've got good people, and we are injecting more resource here into the Shrewsbury area deliberately. We can't. There are certain things with old infrastructure you can't do like you can do with modern infrastructure, as in we can do a certain amount of remote monitoring.
Yeah.
But it's a case of proactive maintenance and refurbishment and keeping on top of it, and that's exactly what we're doing here in the Shrewsbury area.
Because a lot of people go, oh, you know, Victoria stuff, it lasts forever, but actually, it does wear out.
It does wear out. Yeah. So wood rots. Obviously, thermal forces. If you look at the lever pulls and the runs and everything else, the cables, when things get hot, they expand, contract, and you've got to keep an eye on all of that sort. Vegetation grows up through. You've got to clear all that. And also, if you look at just keeping in front of it all of the time, so. We're not going to get that big investment. We're not going to get that multi-million-pound resignaling here or track remodelling. So it's a case of making the best of what we've got.
One of the highlights of the day is a visit to Severn Bridge Junction Box, the majestically imposing structure that sits amidst the triangle of busy tracks just to the south of Shrewsbury. We climb the steps into the box, and I note the wonderfully worn treads where countless signalmen will have walked before me. The 117-year-old Grade 2 listed building still has its original 180 levers inside, all dating from 1903. It's now the largest operational mechanical signal box, in terms of levers, in the world, although these days signallers use 89 of those levers to signal train movements. Unusually, the signal box diagram is mounted on the end walls of the box. Although unconventional, it does allow the signalman to clearly see the occupation of track circuits from any point whilst working the levers. Although sited on joint property of the London and North Western and Great Western Railways, this box is a pure London North Western design, being built to that company's standard design of 1876. Perhaps the most distinctive feature of London and North Western frames is the front-mounted stirrup to operate the catch mechanism. Signalman Greg Moyer operates the absolute block instrument. The bells and codes enable Greg to identify the train and communicate clearly with the adjacent signal box. It is a remarkable window on a method of keeping the railway safe that can trace its lineage back many generations.
Obviously, we've been to the boxes today, Crewe Junction, we've been to Severn Bridge. Every day, 300 trains through here, all with our signallers, routing them through. If you look at all the little interactions, all the little components that move to create that, and also the railway infrastructure, the station here at Shrewsbury, it's an art form, but it's one where if you focus on it, you can get high performance levels. If you look at what we've done also with Transport for Wales here, if you look at, we connect the Cambrian coast with the West Midlands, we connect the Northwest with South Wales. Also, if you go that way, obviously you go to Chester. Transport for Wales are introducing new trains, a lot of new trains, longer trains. The timetable, December just gone, we've upgraded the timetable as well. We've increased the line speeds here.
Right.
So with Transport for Wales, more reliable infrastructure, using what we've got as best we can. New trains, longer trains, faster trains, better facilities on board. We're really kind of leaning into the customer here.
What's really good about this, the mainstream media would talk about, it's all a bit of a disaster and a crisis. But I spoke with James Price recently about it, and he talked about collaboration and partnership with Network Rail. You're talking about collaboration and partnership with Transport for Wales. It's clearly happening and making a difference.
It is absolutely making a difference. If you look at 2 or 3 years ago, the line-up from Newport through Hereford, the trains were often late. They're very old, by the way. They're ex-British Rail trains that I used to fix when I was an apprentice. So they're getting.
They're that old, are they? Okay.
I'm not quite that old, but maybe I'm getting on a bit now. But the reality is now, if you look at it now, the 197 trains, 2, 3, 4, and 5 car variants of those now. If you look at the Mark IV trains, and along this line of route here, we have worked to upgrade this whole line of route. Like I said, for the Mark IV carriages now, the loco hauled, we've increased the line speeds. If you look at access for all facilities, Cwmbran, Ludlow, Abergavenny, Pontypool Newen coming soon. And if you look at then the timetables, the schedules, tightening them up. There's certain places where they were too tight. So if you look at dwell times, but making the overall timetable much more resilient, much more dependable. We're on that journey. We're not there yet, but we're working very closely with Transport for Wales to provide a premium service here, a reliable service.
You don't have a huge amount of money. You've got to live within your means.
You have.
So it's all like little marginal gains. Which to me just sounds like good old-fashioned basic railway operations. How to live with what you've got and just constantly make it better.
It absolutely is. We have got a lot of talented people, and we are guilty sometimes of holding them back. But if you let them loose, in a controlled way, of course. But if you look at some of the reliability upgrades that we've done here, with we've blended some old with some new. So if you look at the slide chairs, the point systems, the lubrication, what we've done there, we've driven points reliability through using new products on old infrastructure.
I mean, last sort of question about all of this really. You're in a lot of Wales is quite rural. You've got some real challenges, even on the main lines. There's a lot of challenges there. The climate resilience is not getting any easier a challenge. We've had some really big storms recently. How did that go? Were you able to do some preventative stuff, or are you constantly sort of chasing the back of the storm?
So, just before Christmas, in fact, we just had a storm just literally last weekend. But just before Christmas, for us, Storm Dara was a red weather warning across the whole of the country of Wales. It completely smashed the railway up. My colleague in Scotland's just had that at the weekend. So I feel their pain. But if you look at what that's done, we spent 2 or 3 days preparing for that over and above what we'd ordinarily do. So there's some preventative things that we'll do there. During the storm itself, we had wind speeds of nearly 100 miles an hour. The highways were shut. We were working with the police, so we've got to be very careful about what we respond to there.
Yeah.
We don't want to add to the challenges that the ambulance service have got or anything like that. But then it took us nearly a week to clear up after.
Wow.
We had hundreds and hundreds of items of debris blown onto the track, hundreds of items of damage. If you look at line side trees and vegetation, third party trees down, it was a week-long undertaking. It cost us nearly £2 million in a week that was not budgeted for. We've just got to, get on with it and keep our people safe, obviously, but get the railway back as serviceable as quick as we safely can.
In a world where we're obviously trying to invest, we want modern kit and all the rest of it, it is really brilliant to see what is old heritage equipment still doing a job, still doing it well, still being looked after by some really talented people. I've had a fantastic day. So, Nick, thanks so much.
My pleasure. You're always welcome.
Cheers.
Well, how about that? That Severn Bridge Junction box? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, the big one.
What a thing that is. I've been lucky enough to visit there, and I was just gobsmacked. I mean, I did go out on the rail around the edge, which I know you won't have done. No. But just to stand there and watch trains, look at that great view of the station. It's amazing.
It's the greatest office view in the world.
I can see you enjoyed it.
Oh, well, yet another example, right, of going out onto the railway, nothing staged. Obviously Nick knew I was going because he'd organised it, and James and Dean, who you heard or saw in that, were also brilliant. But all the people that we met were just great, very welcoming, very hospitable. And it is fantastic just to see that stuff still working, still doing the job it was designed to do all these years later. Fantastic.
I particularly enjoyed your comment about the interlocking fitters because it's like mechanical voodoo, is that, with all those sliding bars and slots and tappets and all the rest of it.
Yeah. I asked one of the lock fitters who was working in Severn Junction box, in that absolute morass of bits of metal. I said, how do you do this? He said, carefully, with patience, and with a lot of love.
There you go.
That was great,
Right, let us move on. Another great vid there. At the top of the show, we mentioned the piece we had done last week on Chancellor Rachel Reeves, Rachel from Accounts, big growth speech, and wow, did it get some response. Fair to say that the majority of those who commented were not impressed. And a lack of grip on facts as well, with that remarkable mistake about no new runways having been built in the UK since the 1940s. I see quite a fair few people called her out after we'd pointed out the error. In fact, TV journalist Robert Peston did too, and just very rare among national journalists to even notice that mistake. How do you think it went down, Richard, since? Has there been a mellowing of comments?
Don't think so, really.
No.
I think people that were underwhelmed by it have remained positively underwhelmed by it. Those were supporting it have not changed their view. For Heathrow Airport, unsurprisingly, we were one of those who were positive. But I think the first reactions ended up, I think the first reactions ended up being the continuing reaction. I'll tell you what I did find a bit weird, and I'm seeing it increasingly with people on sites like LinkedIn. So LinkedIn sort of prides itself on being where,
professional people.
I say professional people, right, within professional roles.
Not Twitter.
Network. But there's so many people who I just felt were completely devoid of what I would call critical thinking skills. So they would simply post about it.
Skepticism is dead.
Well, they would just say, this is what she said, and this is what's going to happen, and this is why it's wonderful. Well, I could have read that by, listening or reading what she said. There was just acres of it. And at first I thought they were bots, but then I bothered to check out a couple, and they were real people with real jobs. So
how depressing.
And it is a bit depressing, really. I mean, we shouldn't always be attacking, but sometimes it's good to challenge, and it's good to think, and it's good to discuss. And I'm a bit sort of surprised by, that there wasn't as much of that as I thought it was going to be. I mean, I personally think that the story is going to get slightly overwhelmed, frankly. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, between her speech and some elements of that, and say Trump's tariffs, which has come subsequently, they're, whatever view on that is, they're just different orders of magnitude, aren't they? And then now we've got his latest pronouncement. So there's a danger it just gets completely swamped by that. And there you go. It was a fascinating story. I still think what I said last week, the issue for rail is going to be the spending review, and or not. But that's what we'll be keeping an eye on.
I noticed there was a business or a political briefing in the Times this very morning where the Treasury and I think the OBR are warning that the 9 billion of spending headroom she had has gone because of inflation, rising prices, rising borrowing costs, and that she's completely up against it again. So that's not going to bode well for rail, is it?
Well, it'll either be spending cuts or it'll be tax rises or both.
And now it's time to thank everyone who's left us a super thanks on YouTube this week, and it's a slightly longer list. Here you all are: Bob Walsh, Sean Harris, Marion Bloom, Alan Kirkman, Peter Stewart, Martin Sloman, Chris Exley, Keith Grafton, Andrew Seddon, Alistair Rutledge, Paul Roberts, Nigel Mapston, Peter Curtis, Wacky Racers, Zach Shaler, and Adrian Headley. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate so many of you clicking the super thanks button and helping Green Signals to be what it's becoming. We do appreciate it, all three of us. Thank you very much indeed.
Indeed so. And thanks also to our new gold and silver members, who are Paul McLaughlin, David Hodgkinson, Michael Lenz, and Betty Fogg. Thank you to them. And you can see all our members, gold, silver, and bronze, listed in the credits at the end of the show. If you haven't sent me your address, if you're a gold and silver member, please do so that we can get your mug to you. I'm delighted to say the suppliers just emailed me yesterday, actually, to say that they're about to be dispatched. So I'll be going into mug packing mode shortly and delighting the post office again when I turn up with loads of them. So
I'm going to say, have you got Deviser's post office on standby?
Absolutely. No, they kind of look at me and go, oh, it's you again. Right. Anyway, there we go.
And now it's time for this week's Railway News Roundup. Thanks to Olin Kenny, David Redgewell, Anthony Thomas, and Alex Fortune, who all pointed this one out to us. Plans to build a new station in East Cardiff have finally been approved by Wales' First Minister. It's been a long time coming after the original application was called for in review in October 2022. The total development, to be known as Cardiff Parkway, will have a 4-platform station and a business park. Cardiff Parkway Developments, which is overseeing the project, has said that the site could support up to 6,000 jobs. They will now draw up a programme for delivery. And I find this hard to believe, Richard, but Cardiff has 20 stations, I'm told. But none of them are on the east side of the city, so it's an important project finally moving in the right direction.
No, it's good that. Here's another really interesting one, Nigel. It'll be interesting in your thoughts on this as a journalist. Sent to us by a number of people. We heard reports that we're about to see the end of Britain's longest train journey, the Penzance to Aberdeen intercity service, currently operated by Cross Country, according to the draft timetable that Cross Country submitted. Now, I've got to be honest, I'm not really all that. I think it's a little bit of a gimmick in one sense, because I don't suppose anybody goes that whole distance. But nonetheless, it is the longest one, so it's interesting, right?
And it's a milestone if it's finally been caped.
It is. So we contacted Cross Country to find out if the rumour was true. And unfortunately, they weren't terribly helpful. I'm going to read you out exactly what they said. Our May 2025 timetable remains still in draft form and is subject to change. Although this is the person who sent it to us from the comms team, I understand that these drafts have now been automatically uploaded to some industry systems. Wait for this. We are continuing to work with partners across the industry to agree a timetable that delivers the best balance of capacity, customer satisfaction and revenue, while also providing confidence in operational delivery. So Stef went back to cross country and asked them to confirm, simple yes or no, right? Was it in the draft timetable or not? And got this. We're currently not able to confirm any details of our May 2025 timetable, which remains in draft form and is subject to confirmation. Stef tried again.
She's very persistent. You don't get her off your back that easy. I promise you.
But she said she only wanted to know about the draft timetable. Was it in it or was it not in it? And got nothing back. So I'm afraid we can't say any more. Now, even the Sun newspaper, I think, had a quote from a spokesperson at Cross Country, sort of alluding to the fact that it is in the draft timetable, that it is coming out. So we confidently expect that it will become the Penzance to Edinburgh, not the Penzance to Aberdeen. But if there's anybody from Cross Country listening to this, please, 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 all it needed was, yes, it is in the draft timetable, which is subject to confirmation, or no. But that sort of absolute government speak, it read like a script out of Yes Minister. And you're seeing it more and more now. We've got to put all these buzz phrases in that people think that actually being quite clever, and it's just really irritating. So you asked that's my little rant for the day, but there you go.
You asked what I thought. And when I was reading through my treatment, I planned for this show, I've just written one word in red pen with an exclamation mark alongside that, and that word is pathetic.
Oh, okay. I really weren't sure where you were going with that one. I'm mildly relieved, I have to say, but there you go. Yeah.
But I mean, it just is. But there's a little insight into some of the PR that Stef and I have lived with, sadly, for many years. The best PRs are exceptional. But like you said, it's in the draft, but it could change. Watch this space, we'll let you know. Okay. Yes or no would have been done. Something that affects all of us now, and increasingly on the railway, climate change. RSSB has developed a standardised set of climate change scenarios for the railway so that there can be a consistent approach to climate change risk, vulnerability assessments, project and asset designs, and strategic planning activities. The idea is to estimate how future climate conditions could change over time, including temperature, rainfall and sea levels. They base the scenarios on different levels of greenhouse gas emissions, using climate models to predict potential outcomes under different assumptions about human activities. All sounds very clever. The hope is that these scenarios can be used to incorporate resilience into the rail network, including in the design and operation of infrastructure and services, and that would all be a good thing.
Certainly would. And a little update, Nigel, on a story that we touched on last week, very briefly, the Severn Valley Railway.
Oh, yeah.
And the devastating landslip we talked about. Now, Network Rail, apparently, are assisting with some investigation work. They're sending specialist geotechnical and infrastructure experts to visit the site so that they can properly investigate what's happened. The railway has already raised over £36,000 in donations from the public after news broke of the incident. If you haven't seen the photographs of it, it's pretty bad. So it looks as if it's going to be an expensive fix, but it's lovely to see the reaction, the response from people, and fair play for Network Rail for helping out.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Network Rail's help is probably pretty good because it's a good research and learning opportunity for them about where there's been an infrastructure failure. So that's all good stuff for that. It's not like they're just helping a heritage railway.
No.
And I've read since that I understand it's near a place called Stearns, which has got a history from the time the railway was built of being unstable. I did some driving turns under supervision a good few years ago on the Severn Valley, and I remember my good friend Andy Williams, not the singer, who was driving, pointing out a row of telegraph poles across a field. He said they used to be next to the railway, and it constantly been a problem. So let's hope they get it sorted soon. And that's the news roundup for this week. If you'd like to send us any snippets of news, please do so. We're interested in single paragraphs, big stories, local, national. We don't see everything, so don't assume that our radar collects it all. And if you do send us something which we use on the show, we'll read out your name as a name check. So please send us the stuff. And now, Drum
It's
roll.
time to do the quiz.
Which I'm
You
not
just-
going to attempt to do.
No, what, the drum roll? No, please don't do that. I did notice when you were talking about Severn Valley Railway, actually, you'd done some driving turns under supervision. I think most things you should do probably should be under supervision. But anyway, that's. I'll move swiftly on from that since
Cheek.
you've been rude. You've been rude about the quiz. Right. So on last week's show, the question was this: what's the famous link between a Battle of Britain Pacific steam locomotive and a Class 52 Western diesel hydraulic locomotive? There were loads of correct answers, which was, of course, Sir Winston Churchill, and specifically his funeral train on the 30th of January 1965, which obviously was the anniversary of the day the show went out. The eponymous bullied Battle of Britain Light Pacific, number 34051, took the coffin from Waterloo to Hamborough, and then Class 52, number D 1015 Western Champion, brought the train and mourners back to Paddington. It's a quirk of fate, perhaps, but it's still lovely that both locomotives actually still survive in preservation. And indeed, one of our green signallers, Stephen Bates, who I met briefly in Devises Supermarket, if you have been watching the show since the very beginning, has driven D1015 Western Champion and sent a lovely photograph of him doing just that. So there you go. There's a nice green signals connection as well. And the winner, chosen randomly from all the correct answers we had, was Adam Madge. So congratulations, Adam. If you could send us an email with your address, we will get your quiz winner's mug out to you. So to this week's question.
Ta-da!
Right. What name was traditionally given to the permanent way gang that got a newly laid section of track up to standard at the fastest and the best of anybody else? What name was given to the gang, and what did they get on the certificate for delivering that traditionally? If you think you know the answer to that, send us an answer to quiz@greensignals.org by midday on Saturday, February the 8th. We'll put all the answers into the hat and we'll draw one out at random. And that's the quiz.
Excellent. I do remember watching, I was only, 8 or 9, Winston Churchill's funeral on the telly in black and white with all the dock cranes at London dipping as the boat went by.
Wow.
Little factoid about Winston Churchill, the locomotive. It's part of the National Collection now.
It is.
It's not operational, but I understand, I don't think this has changed, in view of its historical place, it's never been repainted at all. They've cleaned it up and they've done various bits of trying to smarten it up, but I understand that it's been just as it was that day when it... this is where Anthony Cools gets in touch and says, that was true until 2 years ago, Nigel, we repainted it, but it used to be the case. So let's have something good to end on, shall we, Richard? Northern, oft criticised, but here's some good stuff, has opened applications for engineering apprenticeships across the north of England. Hooray! They're going to be recruiting apprentices at 5 train care centres, is that what they call depots now? Offering a 3-year apprenticeship to earn over £19,000 a year while studying for a level 3 qualification in rail engineering. Closing date for applications is Sunday, February the 23rd. And you can find out more at northernrailway.co.uk/careers. Excellent. Well done, Northern.
Yeah, well done. We'll put the email, we'll put that website on our website address on our website as well, and in the description, just in case people want to do that. It's great news. Well done.
And sadly, as time races by when you're having fun, that's all we've got time for this week. So thanks so much for watching or listening. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube, and please support the channel if you can by subscribing to it, which is entirely free. Just click the subscribe button. But if you really want to support us, find out about membership on YouTube or Patreon. But most important of all, join us again next week for this show, which will always be free. So until then, it's goodbye from me, and
it's goodbye from me.
Have a fantastic week.